Osho a rebellious child? Osho is born in Kukwada, a small rural village in the state of Madhya Pradesh, central India, on December 11, 1931. He is the eldest of 11 children of a Jaina cloth merchant. He is described as independent and rebellious as a child, questioning the social expectations and religious beliefs his family and teachers try to impose on him. As a youth, he experiments with meditation techniques from many different traditions. He talks about these years in his book Glimpses of a Golden Childhood. Enlightenment. Osho is fascinated by mystical spirituality from an early age. He seeks out and questions every priest and holy man he can find, regardless of their religion. He practices every meditation technique he can discover from ancient books, including all 112 techniques from Shiva's 2,000-year-old Vijayana Bhairav Tantra. He explores the yoga meditation techniques of Patanjali. He infamously spends a moonless night in a temple known for venomous snakes, allowing them to crawl over his body. University years. Osho attends 2 university colleges. He is asked to leave the first when his logics professor complains to the vice-chancellor that he cannot teach because Osho will not stop asking questions. Admonished by the professor not to argue, Osho points out that this defeats the whole purpose of being in a class on philosophy and logic. Exasperated, the professor, an old and respected man, gives the ultimatum that either he leaves or I leave. The vice-chancellor finds Osho a place in another college, but his reputation has preceded him and a condition is made that he not attend the philosophy classes at the new college. Osho agrees happily. He prefers to teach himself in the library, where he continues his voracious reading. He also continues to torture his professors. He notices that few of them ever visit the library, and he peppers them with questions about up-to-date material in their field. When he discovers one professor who will never admit that he does not know something, Osho traps him by quoting in class a fictitious book, Principia Logica. When the professor says he has read the book, Osho exposes him to the vice-chancellor. Despite antagonizing his professors, in 1957 Osho gains a first-class MA in logic, philosophy, and literature. He is also the All India debating champion and gold medal winner in his graduating class. Professor and controversial speaker. Aged 26, he is appointed professor of philosophy at the University of Jabalpur, where he teaches until 1966. Described as a brilliant but unorthodox professor, even his teaching methods create controversy. However, he is immensely popular and his lectures have to be moved to the largest hall in the university. A powerful and passionate debater, he also travels widely in India during these years, challenging orthodox religious leaders in public debates, speaking on the radio, and addressing large public gatherings. He vehemently attacks India's long-standing love affair with poverty, condemning the revered Gandhi for crippling India with his anti-modern, anti-technology thinking. Gandhi's preoccupation with the poor, he says, has hindered their liberation from poverty. In the same vein, he lashes out at another national hero, Mother Teresa, for manipulating the orphan problem in order to create more converts to Catholicism. A few years later he causes further outrage when he begins to lecture that sex is a path to enlightenment. Public talks around India. After 9 years of teaching, Osho leaves the university to devote himself entirely to the raising of human consciousness. On a regular basis, he begins to address gatherings of up to 50,000 people in the open-air Maidans of India's major cities. Osho is free to concentrate full-time on his vision of inspiring a new kind of man, a person who will be free of the limitations, guilt and expectations imposed by society and religion. The beginning of sannyas and meditation camps. Osho, at this time called Bhagwan Shree Rajneesh, begins to initiate seekers into neo-sannyas or discipleship, a path of commitment to self-exploration and meditation which does not involve renouncing the world or anything else. He encourages his sannyasins to celebrate life totally rather than abstain from life. In April 1970, he introduces his now famous revolutionary meditation technique, dynamic meditation. The Pune Ashram. Osho moves to Pune, where he establishes the Shree Rajneesh ashram to put into practice this vision. The people who come are young and well-educated, and disillusioned with the life they had been expected to live. They want something more. They feel there has to be more to life than the rat race. And they find it in the ashram, which is a boiling pot of intense immersion in Osho's talks, his meditation techniques plus the new psychotherapy techniques emerging from the West. Osho has attracted to his teaching some of the best educated minds of Western Europe and the US. His discourses offer insights into all the major spiritual paths, including yoga, Zen, Taoism, Tantra and Sufism. He also speaks on Gautam Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, and other mystics. These discourses are collected into over 600 books and translated into 50 languages. Osho himself designs the covers for his books. And the international media Osho is described by contemporary journalists who actually spend time checking him out as extraordinary, remarkable, deeply impressive, inspired, highly disturbing, and utterly fascinating. 1981 from Pune to the US. The success of the ashram also contributes to its demise. It is located in Korgaon Park, a quiet, leafy suburb of Pune inhabited mostly by wealthy, conservative Brahmins and Parsas. The streets begin to fill with orange-clothed young people, walking between their homes and the ashram, laughing, singing and, gasp, hugging and kissing. The locals are outraged, and use their considerable influence to stir up the media and the local authorities against the ashram. The US government refuses to accept that Osho is a religious teacher and rejects his application. Instead, they initiate one of the most intensive investigations ever conducted against one man. 1983 critical acclaim for Osho. The US government's refusal to accept Osho as a religious teacher touches off a storm of protest from religious and other professionals around the world. Their message is summed up by the Hollywood poet, author, and movie maker, James Broughton. Osho is one of the most extraordinary men of these last decades of this century. Arrest in the US in 1985. Underscore when Osho's plane lands in Charlotte, he and his companions are arrested, without warrants, at gunpoint, 12 loaded rifles. They are chained hand and feet, and immediately taken to jail. The others are released on bail, but Osho is held without bail for 12 days. The charges against Osho are technical immigration violations, specifically that he conspired to the making of illegal marriages so his foreign disciples could stay at the ranch. It is unprecedented that someone with no history of violence is denied bail on such minor charges. Greece in 1986. At his first stop, Greece, Osho is granted a 30-day tourist visa. He moves into a house on the island of Crete owned by Nikos Kountouros, a Greek filmmaker. Immediately, people from all over the world flock to be with him, and he starts giving daily talks. But after only 18 days, on March 5, Greek police forcibly break into the house where he is staying, arrest him at gunpoint, and deport him. Uruguay in 1986. On March 19, Osho travels to Uruguay where he is granted a 3-month visa thanks to a well-connected sannyasin. Once again he starts giving talks, twice a day. These talks are very intimate as only his household is present. On June 14, the government has scheduled a press conference to announce that Osho will be granted permanent residence in Uruguay. Uruguay's President Sanguinetti later admits that he received a telephone call from Washington, D.C. the night before the press conference. He is told that if Osho is allowed to stay in Uruguay, the $6 billion debt Uruguay owes to the U.S. will be due immediately and no further loans will be granted. Osho is ordered to leave Uruguay on June 18. In June 1986. Danger to national security. During the next month he is deported from both Jamaica and Portugal. It is subsequently discovered that the U.S. Attorney General Edwin Meese, a right-wing conservative Christian in Ronald Reagan's cabinet, has entered Osho's name in the Interpol database under the label Danger to National Security. Hence the unwillingness of countries to allow him to stay or even enter. Finally come to Mumbai in 1986. Osho returns to Mumbai, India, the only country which cannot refuse him entry or deport him. Once again, people start arriving from all over the world to be with him, and he begins daily discourses. At the same time, the search begins for land in India on which to build the next commune, but nothing suitable is found. Return to Pune. Osho returns to the Pune ashram, which is renamed Rajneeshtham. Thousands of people flock there and a new commune is established. Osho recommences his daily discourses, but for the first time his health keeps him confined to his room for long periods. He says this is the result of his poisoning by the US government. Drops Bhagwan. Drops Bhagwan. He stops using the name Bhagwan, retaining only the name Rajneesh. However, his disciples ask to call him OSHO Rajneesh and he accepts this form of address. Last 9 months. Osho's health has been deteriorating markedly over the previous 3 years from the effects of the poisoning, and he finally stopped speaking in public. September 1989. Changes name to Osho. Osho drops the name Rajneesh, signifying his complete discontinuity from the past. He is now known simply as Osho, and the ashram is renamed Osho Commune International. January 1990. Osho's body weakens. During the second week in January, Osho's body becomes noticeably weaker. This is one of the last photos of him. January 1990. Osho leaves the body. On January 19th, his pulse becomes irregular. When his doctor inquires whether they should prepare for cardiac resuscitation, Osho says, "No, just let me go." Existence decides its timing. He leaves his body at 5 p.m. His doctor's message delivered in Buddha Hall describing Osho's final moments, including Osho's last words. At 7 p.m. his body is brought to Gautama the Buddha Auditorium for a celebration, and is then carried to the burning ghats for cremation. 2 days later, his ashes are brought to Osho Commune International and placed in his samadhi in Chuang Tzu Auditorium with the inscription,